the wall. All right, you go ahead.
All right, we're going to call this meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Please join me for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we only have 3 board members tonight, but that is still a quorum. Certification of delivery of official notices of meeting was handled by Adam Licky. We'll move on to the minutes from the regular meeting of September 27th and the special meeting of October 4th. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
I did.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Hendrickson, second by Dr. Rude. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Yes.
Abstain
Oh, you're abstaining.
because I wasn't.
Okay. Do you want to split those motions up?
Yeah, we need 3 votes if we're gonna.
You can still vote on them if you reviewed them according to Robert's Rules of Order. If they're
I'm abstaining on the wrong one. No. This is the reason I was abstaining was because I wasn't at the meeting.
yeah, according to Robert's Rules of Order, you can actually vote on meeting minutes even if you weren't there. If you review them and they're in order with how the business is typically conducted by the organization.
It is.
But that's up to you. But that's according to Robert's Rules of Order. You are allowed to vote on them.
I'm happy to vote yes.
Okay. So all in favor of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of September 27th and the special meeting of October 4th?
Aye.
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 So that motion passes. Okay, moving on to the Health District staff reports. First comes the population health report. Mr. Licky, did you want to
Yes.
talk about that?
So, in addition to that, I was talking with Dr. Reed, who used to be the health commissioner at the end of 21, I think beginning of 22, if I remember correctly. We're going to restart up the Well Child Clinic. I spoke specifically with the Ohio Department of Health. They will not fund it at all, nor provide aid in that case. So what we did is Dr. Reed, myself, and Patty from DDC are working together. They're going to provide, NUH, sorry, because I'm with UH. They're going to be able to provide nurses to maintain the Well Child Clinic. During the day, we already had the vaccine clinic for the Amish at the DDC, so we'll expand that service out. It was something that was requested by the Amish, as well as Dr. Reed trying to restart it, so we're able to do that. So it's been down for almost a decade now.
Is there a reason why it went down?
The funding was no longer made available by the state, and so we stopped that when the funding stopped.
Yeah, it's a federal reallocation, so most of the money's coming through the Fed, so some local dash money from the state, and then gave down, but it stopped a long time ago.
So we're able to restart that, thankfully, with Dr. Reed's help being a spearhead of it. And with that restarted, we should be in a lot better place with the Amish able to help them out, amongst other things.
So where will it be sited?
At the DDC. So part of our thing was to maintain nursing, the ability to do what we already do now. We had to do that. We were doing it at the DDC because we don't have enough. I don't have enough staff to set up a whole other clinic and run a whole other clinic. So we're going to run it.
But that location does seem to be convenient.
Oh yeah, the Amish are they're already going there for multiple reasons, and so because they're already there, it makes a whole lot more sense to have it there. And some of them who are already going in to see the DDC on that day can now see Dr. Reed as well. Or the MAs that'll be there working with her.
And who is that clinic available? Is it only available to the Amish or anyone that's interested?
No. It shouldn't be.
Yeah. I wouldn't
No,
think
it's not
so either,
Amish
right?
only. It's generally in this county, the ones who would be there are the Amish though.
Right.
Because I remember a time when there were like 5 clinics across Geauga County. There was one even
wow.
in Newberry. Novelty, I'm sorry.
Probably when the grant was there, the Child Government Services grant.
Right.
Yeah, and it was.
But that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think 10 years ago there was probably 1 clinic, maybe is my understanding. So I mean, maybe 30 years ago there were 5 or 6, but the last time there was 1. Dr. Reed came in. She helped even throughout COVID, it just kind of tapered off during COVID, people not be able to come in or not be able to help service them. But we're hoping to start that back up with her, and if the community wants it, we'll do it, and if we find there's no need, we can always, switch from there.
Is there like an income requirement or anything? Or?
As of right now, we don't have that settled in stone, but usually Dr. Reed's willing to help anybody,
Okay.
within reason, obviously. I mean, everything's within reason.
That's the way it used to be as well. So many of our patients would go to the clinic to get their immunizations that we didn't even stock childhood vaccines in our clinic because we didn't have enough of a patient population to use them before they outed it.
And that, a lot of this comes down to that funding source that we just no longer have, so we
Right.
don't have the ability to buy and do those things. That's really the only other thing I want to add for nursing specifically, or population health, is that. They are doing trunk or treat. I should mention that. The team there is doing trunk or treat, so we'll be out there for that one.
Oh, tomorrow for the sheriff's office. I'll be there too.
There we go.
I'll say hi.
Throw a Snickers bar at you or something.
Got some donuts to take care.
The question I had was about the Ohio Buckeyes program, the car seat program. Who is eligible for that program? How is that advertised so that parents are aware of it?
Yeah, so we advertise that online, usually through Facebook, amongst other things, or locally. Ron, do you remember for the safety seat, the car safety seat, that it's income
uses like the 300% poverty
Yeah,
Okay.
guidelines are
I knew it was
issued
certain-
like every April.
all right.
It's like so if they're Medicaid eligible, typically eligible for those.
Okay.
I was thinking Medicaid, but I can't remember what that
Yeah.
by 300%.
So I'm in some local like Facebook mom groups, and there's always people looking for car seats that say they can't afford them. So that's why I wondered
And a lot of
where
the
I could get
moms,
information to pass it along.
and we see a lot of moms that and dads that install them wrong, so when they come
Right.
out, they
No,
get,
it's tricky.
so they get to install them correctly, so it's an accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get flyers out to you.
Okay, that's all the questions I had. Anyone else have questions on the population health report?
And if it would so please the court of Board of Health, I do have Brandon here from Donamark. He's the one that was drilling the wells in Parkman. I
great.
asked him to come out and just kind of talk to you guys about where they're at and how it's going.
Yeah.
If we would be so inclined, if I could interrupt so that he is not here waiting.
Yeah,
'cause we do have some other
absolutely.
heavier hitting topics. But Brandon, I would give you the floor, sir.
Thank you. Where would you like me to stand?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Yeah, wherever
in
you
that
want.
area.
Certainly. Very good. Well, it's good to come before you. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. I am Brandon Mantell, President, owner of Donamark Water Systems. We are working extensively in Parkman with the replacement well program that's going in there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. We're into really the second phase, which really the second step of the second phase. So we have, at this point on the second phase, we completed 9 wells, and then we are on to completing 3 of the last of the 8. So we're well into that. Expect that to be wrapping up here in the next 2 weeks. Everything is going good. We're achieving good quality water. We've had one question that came up as far as if there were other hydrocarbons or such found in the water. We have a test that we're running on one. We don't suspect there's going to be an issue because we also ran a in-house laboratory test where we determined that there is some regular background bacteria that's pretty present, like some iron bacteria. It could be causing like a smell type issue. We're monitoring that. Relatively speaking, there's rumored of one other well in that area that years ago had perhaps some hydrocarbons. We went to those people, we did talk to them, and they said that everything's been beautiful with their water. So we aren't expecting any issues at this point. So all the residents have been very good to work with. The health department's been great to work with. So we're just trying to make everybody happy onto that. So if you have any questions related to that, I'd be happy to answer that as well. Our company is a 40-person company. We've been in business for over 40 years. We do extensive work in well drilling, pump work, well rehabilitation, water treatment, along with extensive work into the EPA realm. We are the largest contract operator for Ohio EPA, Northeast Ohio. We engineer water in-house. We engineer more water plants for Ohio EPA than any other firm in the state of Ohio. I have a Class 1 license. We have 10 licensed operators. So we major. We have about 25,000 residential customers that we service, and we have about 140 public water systems that we maintain and operate. I have been on a number of work groups, so I've been on the 2011 and the 2020 private water system work group, and I'm planning on being on to the next work group. And
And private water system is what residential wells are called in the state law. So-
Okay.
And so I've been extensively on ODNR's website, Ohio EPA's website, Ohio Department of Health's website. I was the one that wrote the document that's on the Ohio Department of Health site for methane mitigation. So as of this point, I'm the only person that's ever lectured in the state of Ohio on methane mitigation. And so same thing with the guidelines for well sealing that the state put out. I was on that committee and along with some stuff on OSU and stuff like that for water.
Well
So
sealing then.
what's that?
We can talk later. I have a bone to pick with you.
Oh, no.
Yes.
We can talk about that later.
It's like we're gonna have a fight.
Yeah.
It's gonna
So
take
There's
you
always
outside.
discussions. So.
So based on your extensive knowledge and experience, do you have confidence that we know where the end of the spill zone is? And
So-
where normal,
I haven't gotten into that or looked at what the data was on this particular one, and that would be more of like a hydrogeologist type evaluation. It's very difficult to determine that. I will tell you that in any contamination, dilution is the most important help to solving problems. People don't like to hear it put that way. So the further you go out, the more there's dilution, the less chance that you're going to see detects. And the secret code word that they teach anybody in environmental sciences is the solution to pollution is dilution. It's the modern day solution to a lot of our issues. In this particular case, the further you move away, the more dilution. But we also thankfully have multiple aquifers in this area with lots of aquatards. That's the formations, dense formations that are preventing vertical movement, basically. So what we have underneath that we're getting water from now is very difficult for those shallower water tables to penetrate through into the deeper water tables. So as far as from the residents in this particular area, I don't think that they'll ever have to see an issue from the bromides and stuff like that they're seeing in some of the shallow. Some of these shallow wells the water tables are less than 25 feet, and rock is at pretty close to surface in these areas. And rock, especially in the shallower depths, isn't as great of an aquitard, meaning there's more fractures and stuff, it's more broken. So the surface movement is very likely to move down into that shallow aquifer. Some of these well casings have like 6 feet of casing. So, the new wells, we're casing them down to a lot deeper depth through through the upper aquifers, through aquatards. So the chances of ever having, now the nice thing too is that all of these are being grouted with cement, which is above and beyond. The rules do give a guideline, and you're sort of borderline of when it's required, mandated. So with these wells, it's anticipating that it could get worse, and these people will still be protected with the current well structure. So.
And also along those lines, is there any sense of prevention of through Ohio, not through you, but Ohio EPA or someone else, the state level, to look at these sites across the state, identify risk factors, and prevent this from happening elsewhere?
And it's a concern of the groundwater industry that's been questioned and watched. I sit on the board of the Ohio Water Well Association, so we regularly will question the investigations from EPA, Ohio Department of Health, and such. And so it is an ongoing concern. I do think that the problem across Ohio is going to get worse, both through the fact that the history of storage and the history of application. I believe in my lifetime, I will see the day when we no longer put sodium chloride and such down onto our roads, just simply because we're seeing that rise in all the winter states. TDS levels are rising. So, obviously that's something that's going to be fought out between public opinion and regulators and legislators and everybody else. But in that sense, the best thing in prevention let's say we have a particular well where people will drill a well deeper in this particular area, and they happen to have bromides, and you penetrate through the one aquifer and you enter into the second aquifer below it. That should be prevented, and that's a dangerous situation for protecting the rest of the aquifer that people are into the deeper layer. So that's one thing you can do at the local county watch level, making sure that if somebody is drilling a well deeper, that they're not penetrating through two aquifers. And they're keeping that upper, higher bromide chloride aquifer protected and just kept up, and protect your lowers from having a cascading aquifer and such. Again, shallow casing is an issue. In Ohio, generally speaking, the standard well is less than 25 feet, and if it's greater than 25 feet, minimum 25-foot casing, and that's for the purpose of these type of situations. So in some ways, the problem could have been made worse by the fact that we did have shallower casings, fractured rock, and who knows how much movement was actually through some of these type of wells with substandard construction from many, many years ago. But other than the big question across the state, that's above my pay grade, but we're continuing to monitor, and we're trying to push more and more studies when something does happen. I think this is a great thing what happened, because we can sit back as a well drilling industry and say, yeah, we've seen this. I mean, we have absolutely seen this in other places. And so this is a good precedence for governments to take notice and to investigate.
But you don't have any sense that Ohio's looking at how these sites are constructed, how the old sites may need to be reconstructed?
I think a lot of history goes to the
testing.
open storage, rainfall, snow, and everything else. I anticipate that as far as from a storage facility, they're doing a much better job from what we've seen and observed. But even like private snow companies and stuff like that, they're supposed to keep it covered. There's laws for that. We still every once in a while will see, you can see the white traveling from the rainfalls underneath, and it sickens me as far as those who are concerned about groundwater resources.
And there are new designs in the ODOT facilities.
Right.
I remember seeing one where they have like almost an underground capture system that captures as it tries to go out, it captures it back in. So this was an older site, obviously, but some of the new ones have capture systems installed, is my understanding.
Now, you had to go down 300 feet, is that correct?
So some of them we did have to go down a little bit deeper than that, and then as we're moving south, we're following that sandstone layer that's underneath the aquitars that is our target aquifer, and it is getting shallower. So some of the newer ones are going down to the depth of like 200. When you factor in the elevational difference and such, and the fact that where we're trying to travel, we don't want to go deeper because you will get into ambient natural chlorides. There's chlorides under every part of this part of Ohio. And so we want to stay out of that. We also want to stay out of any increased chance of getting, methane or other hydrocarbons, which they're down there. We're just trying to make sure we stay, not introduce it when we don't need to.
So if that 200 to 300 foot aquifer wasn't available, what would we have done? I.e.
So if there was no aquifer that was available, we only had one aquifer, which some places only have one aquifer available, then at that point, extensive treatment or again, pipeline, an alternate public water source brought into the area. Any choices?
And I'm trying to think how many there was just a random quote almost of millions of dollars it would take to get from the nearest water source to them, and astronomical amount of time it would take. Even if it was rushed, I mean, you're talking an astronomical amount of time and money to get water to that area.
So we're fortunate that we had that 300, 200 foot aquifer available.
You are. It's low in iron, low in hardness. It's good pH, neutral pH. So we're from a resource standpoint. If I were those residents, I'd be very pleased to have that available.
And Adam, do we still have holdout residents who are in the center of?
There were, I think, one or two houses, Dan, that just said no, that they
So we've had
refused any kind of.
couple that we've been 4 to 5 times, left messages, door hangers, and just have had no contact at all. So we've, I think there's 2 or 3 kind of in that center section, and just to, I mean, we can't do anything more besides probably hang out at their house on a Saturday night.
Now, if they refuse to cooperate with us now, but come to us 2 years from now and say, I've changed my mind?
The funding is gone October 31st. I mean, that is the drop dead date of the contract, so.
Right. So it's critically important that they understand that.
I mean, they're already passed. It's
Yeah.
I mean, the only well we're looking at potentially, which we talked with Brandon this morning, is the ODOT facility itself. If that well's contaminated, they may give that property to Parkman. Would Ohio EPA or ODOT pay to have a new well drilled there so that the site is useful for a community center or something, given it's been cleaned? So just to sit there until eternity unused and just a blight on society. But yeah, we're already past at that point.
Yeah.
There was, in the first phase, a homeowner who was suspected of maybe needing help and would not respond to the health department. We did go up and ran a bromide test through the laboratory ourselves. I think there's more of a fear aspect of talking to a government agency, whereas for us, they were like, oh yeah, help, yeah, we're fine at help. And it turned out that that particular well was just fine. It was construction standpoint. So some of it's fear driven and stuff like that. If you did have a situation where you suspected maybe there's an issue, we would be willing to knock on the door as a private company working in the area, just an offer just to do a test at no charge to them for the bromide, if you felt concerned that there was an issue, that they were just scared to talk to you. So.
And what are the health hazards from use of a contaminated well such as what we found here?
Yeah, so there's health hazards, and then there's also the physical damage, which is what drove most of these people, I think, to bring the complaints to the health department. From a health standpoint, certainly you get to the point where just the water tastes horrible, it will be bitter and stuff like that. And then you're talking any type of health hazards you get with high chloride levels,
Right.
Blood pressure, stuff like that. So.
Should we have him contact those people that have refused to this point?
I mean, right now, without an extension from OEPA, I
It's
can't.
passed.
If we can't help them.
Yeah, and we've been trying since January, or something like that. Even actually December was the first round of wells. Was supposed to. We've been trying for almost a year now.
Yeah.
I mean, door hangers are gone. It's not like we stick one over the other. I mean, they're gone.
And for good or bad too, the residents are aware of it, like to.
Yeah,
put down
I mean,
that
they do
area.
see the drill in the backyard.
Yeah, I would.
It's part of the mess,
I would
right?
suspect that if the people suspected a problem, they would have approached you. Not every well was a problem. Some of them had adequate casing and they're drilled down to deep enough depths.
And we had some even in the hotspot that were fine. Well, at least we deemed the hotspot. I mean, they were fine in there. So it's possible they're fine. Otherwise, I think they would be saying, maybe just walking into Brandon's team and being like, hey, I may have what they have. What do you think? Because they don't see a health department logo on his stuff. But unfortunately, we've tried, and this is almost a year is what we're going on
Yeah.
at this point. There'll be a quiz from Leland voters after this. I'm sure she has something written down. So get ready. Just kidding. All right. Any other questions for Brandon? I don't want to keep you here all night.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate
Glad
it.
to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. EH report, Mr. Lark.
Yeah, the one thing I just wanted to add is we've been working hard to get the operation and maintenance program up and running. Monday we sent out approximately 800 letters to the first phase for the Chardon and Chester residents. And by Tuesday, people were getting them already, so we've been responding to calls and questions since then, mainly related to people saying they weren't aware of the sampling requirements, or they bought the house and had the system and the old owner didn't inform or anything like that. And actually today even we started getting in some payments for sampling actually, so it was really a quick turnaround for some of those. And just the other, next November 2nd at 6 p.m. we're actually having just kind of an open meeting. We included in the letter to all those residents so they could come in and hear a presentation, ask any questions they got. We tried, I think we reported last meeting, we tried some public meetings that were not attended very well. So that we figured once they got the official letters that maybe they would be angry or something, or more responsive. So that we're trying to make ourselves
Keep
aware.
it positive.
Yeah, I could come up, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Bring you flowers and donuts.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to run we've had, I guess, 4 meetings between the trustees
Yeah.
and the township halls so far.
Okay.
And so we're gonna have next Thursday, I think it is at 6 p.m. here, direct down next door to here. We'll have another public meeting for anybody who's available to make it. And just one other thing, I don't think we've announced, but December 19th at La Malfa Party Center in Mentor, we're doing a joint educational thing for the sewage installers, haulers, and service providers.
I did have Nina send, or
Yeah, I was
Gina
gonna
send
say,
it out to them.
we
Oh,
could
did you?
get,
Okay.
Dr. Henderson.
that's this,
excited.
right?
Yep, that's it.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
we saw that.
So that's the people in the industry who come to that, it fulfills their annual CEU requirement from the state. And so we try and, with that and around support, really try to make it a good event for these people so it's worth their while.
And if you're available, we'd love to have you guys. And given there's 30 to 40,000 septic systems in the county, it'd be great if someone comes up to you as a board member and says, hey, you could at least have some knowledgeable exchange with them in terms of like, here's kind of this. Talk to Dan, obviously, but here's kind of what happens.
If we were gonna attend one, because I mean, I read the topics, and this is kind of like my. I mean, I'm like, this seems like pretty niche.
Yeah, I mean,
subject
it's
matter.
very, it's tailored towards the industry people that work in that.
Yeah.
But I will say that the staff has really done a good job. Like Sarah Heger, I think her name is. She's top notch in the industry for sewage and sewage treatment and operation and maintenance and servicing systems and stuff. So she's a really good speaker.
So is there one that you think would be helpful for us as board members to
I
attend?
would have to look at the agenda again, to be honest with you,
Okay.
and then get back to you.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Lark?
Dan, do you want to go over real quick the property that came in today?
We just had a gentleman, Mr. Fredo, I think his name is.
Oh, you did. I'm not really the Angor. We both dealt with it, but he knows the specifics.
He just installed one of the cyber air systems.
Oh no.
Yeah.
He just installed
No,
it?
not just, I'm sorry.
Oh.
He just
He
came in
installed the 21?
21, I thought.
Or was that the replacement system?
Well,
Either way, he
yeah.
put one in. After a couple of years, he didn't like how it was operating and pulled it out and replaced it with a different type system. He was in the office, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and this week wondering if he would be able to get a refund for his installation permit for the second time system put in.
It was also reiterated by a certain installer in the county that we are doing this for everyone, which was not the case. It was a case-by-case basis based on what happened.
I see.
He's
And when
in-
did he put his new system in?
21, I think. Dan is the. I want to say it was 21.
His 21 was.
I want to say
It's
19
kind of
was
a
the.
while ago.
It was. It was
Yeah.
not recently. But I didn't tell him we bring it to you as a board. Maybe we're all here, we could bring it back again. But I told him to bring it to you so if someone heard him out. But again, it was my understanding when you gave us the authority to do that. This was not an all-inclusive blanket. It was a case-by-case basis based on the issue.
So he installed the cyber air in 18 and then replaced it with a new system in 21.
So and $12 to $1,800 somewhere with all.
Well, none of
permits.
us were even on the board on 2021, so
With the permits?
you may be
yeah.
talking to
The
the
permit
wrong
would be
people.
Am I thinking the?
$800 because there's a $74 state fee that we can't refund, and then there's an operational permit which he needs to have anyways.
That's okay. So that'd be ruled out. Okay, I'm thinking I'm adding everything together. I
That's the
think
top one.
to get to 12. So like $800, $800 to $900 is what.
And how many other people are like in his situation that installed these cyber air systems and then later installed? I mean, do we have any sort of ballpark number?
How many replaced them, I don't know off the top of my head, but
We know
there
the
are,
cybers.
there are
We know how many have.
a couple hundred that actually
Yeah.
installed cyber airs.
I thought there was like 250.
Something like that, yeah, that's
I
what
want to say like 200, 250. But again, that's why this was not a blanket thing. Is $1,000
Yeah.
times 200 people.
Yeah, that's kind of a
Yeah,
It's
big
like 1%, but
expense.
it adds up.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
and, I mean, just so you have all facts, it is a system that the state approved by testing data, third-party testing data submitted to them. So it is, it was, but,
Good
you know,
intentions.
good intentions, the real world data, I've kept track of this data since like 2007, going back. This system wasn't approved till later, but, this system does have one of the lowest success rates out of our sampling data in real world.
Yeah.
Lowest?
Lowest, yeah. And, the other ones, the best one that we see is only close to 70% success in the parameters that we have to sample. This one was, substantially less than that, but
Is this similar to what Claridge puts in?
he used to put some of those in. I don't think they're really sold by the distributors anymore in this area because of the
Yeah.
issues they've had.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. Because I mean, that was an expensive problem for a lot of people.
I'll let you guys think on it, man. I don't want to, it's not,
Yeah.
so I don't rush you on. I mean, we're fine helping the gentleman. I just, you know, I don't want to open floodgates without your approval or vice versa.
I mean, I think it's one thing for new systems that need to be installed, but, you know, 2021.
I'll give you time, we have
But
time
yeah,
to
we
think about it.
we can keep thinking about it. Okay. It looks like there was a lot of, food license, it's a food license time of year, food inspection. Looks like
Right.
that was what was,
Yeah,
So,
you want to hit on that too?
the fees, well, I think we have
was it
that.
just the numbers of food inspections that were completed?
Yeah, that's what I just noticed,
Yeah.
that
So
that was
those
the
are pretty
majority.
standard, the exact numbers, I don't remember off the top of my head. But, you know, so that's, you know, we have 2 people and the majority of their responsibilities is that, so it's pretty typical for that. You know, during the summer months, those people also have some responsibilities for inspecting the swimming pools and they do some campgrounds also.
Yeah.
So during the summer months, the restaurant inspection numbers probably dip a bit. But then now that like kind of all the swimming pools are closed and all that kind of stuff, you know, then it's just pretty much straight food. So the numbers will go up again. And so
Alright.
this is the time of year usually where there's usually 2 rounds of food inspections. Round 1 is just finishing up, or a little couple weeks ago probably did, and round 2 is starting now to hit all the restaurants for their second inspection of the year.
Sounds good. Admin report?
Yeah, so a couple things. WPCLF, Water Pollution Control Loan Fund. Dan's team and Chris Lockstrom have been doing a great job getting those out. We should be able to apply for more money in the future. And with operation and maintenance coming online, it makes sense to have as much money
Yeah.
available as we can for any kind of septic related
Yeah.
issues, repairs or maintenance, repairs or replacement, not just one or the other. And the audit started for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. We have a 2-year audit going on, so that started and they're working on that. And then I do have, I handed out just so you guys to review them, at least start with, we have the first round of billing for Geauga from Lake. It's a 6-month bill, and that 6-month bill is about $35,000 under budget. And that does include the additional staffing that was used for operation and maintenance. So it's actually less, there's actually more than 35,000 under budget, and the original contract projection included only single insurance plans, so they'll take family or employee spouse, even with that. So we're still under even with all those things factored
Great.
in. So we're, knock on wood, we're in a really good spot for that. The biggest question I have for all of you as a board is, with operation and maintenance coming online, Dan Lark and I are being very cautious, especially with the levy coming up for vote and the
Yeah.
tax issues and everything else coming up, is how are we going to address the needs for additional staffing? In the contract, I don't believe, to my recollection, it's incredibly clear, because it was kind of a, you know, as we come across these needs for staffing, we'll come to you.
Right.
So the question is, as a board, how do you want me to communicate to you the increase in staffing that pars with the O&M program? Because I don't want to get behind on staffing, but at the same time, I want to be cautious with how we add, especially where we're at right now, because the funding for O&M doesn't come in until after the fact.
Yeah.
Because we are only right now doing the NPDES side of things, we're not doing the other systems. And when we reduced the FSOP program, the for sale of property, that was the largest income source the health department had. So that went down, and there was no additional offset in revenue. Now we have the O&M starting up, but it's not in full swing. Dan and I are looking to try to put that into swing faster to ramp that up in a effective and efficient manner, not just to push it out there, but to do it as we're moving along. Some of that comes with additional staffing, whether it's a clerk, likely, or a sanitarian. We're reallocating some sanitarians to do those things, so Dan's being cautious with that. But I do need to have an idea of how you'd like me to, you know, propose to all of you these things. Yes, sir.
So are you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I think we need to, because the levy's coming up soon, and there is early voting, I've already voted. We need to have a sense for both outcomes, if the levy passes and if the levy fails.
Yeah, and so obviously, as I think I've mentioned everyone here before, my understanding is as a 24-hour employee, given I'm an administrator, I can't speak for or against the levy, which I don't anyways, but I don't speak for or against it. In terms of just mere facts, when looking at from that lens in, I don't have much I can cut. because right now, EH is self-funded other than rabies and some statutory things, which I can't cut those because they're statutory. If I cut the things that are funded, I lose revenue as I cut.
Yeah.
Nursing is a statutory position to do the communicable disease. The health educator is required by accreditation, and that only leaves the plumbing program, which is self-sufficient, and vital stats, which is self-sufficient. So besides cutting myself, Dan, or Ron, we voted Ron would be the first to go, though.
Yeah.
Dan and I did agree on that.
Please vote on that.
Besides those three, I don't have any meaningful cut that can decrease our expenses while not offsetting a loss in revenue.
No, I mean we looked at this budget last year.
Very thin.
And there's no fat in this budget. I wish there were things we could point to, you know. But that's just. But I mean, I think we'll know by next board meeting if the levy passes or not.
And that would be a discussion for all of you, obviously. But just from that standpoint of that question, I mean, I would gladly tell you, hey, if you cut X expense and Y expense, your revenue, and I don't have, everything is either required by statute or it pays for itself.
Right.
So you talked about cutting, but
Yeah,
if the levy passes,
we would maintain status quo.
yes.
Yeah, because it's a replacement, not a renewal.
Right.
So we're not going to be impacted by the property tax increase from the sextennial that they're talking about.
Yeah.
We would have, if I remember correctly, it's the new built items is what is impacted on ours, which would be a small increase. I'm going to assume. I don't have.
Yeah,
exact-
new construction homes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
but
we would
that's not
have
a lot
that.
of money.
But yeah, again, I think Mr. Walters had to be minimal at best. I want to say
Yeah.
something of that nature.
I mean, if we get a few $100, that would probably be all we're gonna see.
So your point is that we still have a problem even if the levy passes?
We don't have a problem necessarily, but I have no room on either side of my lane to say we can kind of go over here and we're fine. We can go over here. It's the straight and narrow, and we're assuming O&M with Dan's help, we get that up and running quicker, which we've been using Christy Pinkley from our team who did the program in Lake to kind of fast track those things because we kind of knew the pitfalls to avoid.
Right.
But everything kind of hinges on O&M self-sustaining environmental health. Food maintains itself via the food fees, which all you can do is break even unless you can't make money. And then everything else is more or less statutorily required with zero funding source.
So are you talking about hiring someone new or just using a pre-existing employee from Lake?
These would so right now we're using a pre-existing employee, but to do everything that would be coming on board, we'd have, like we mentioned well before this, we'll have to hire people from O&M. It will be the largest program by far in the health department. It'll squash everything
Yeah,
else.
if we have capacity, we just charge it instead of filling a position, the long-term cost of your part, we can kind of phase it back in, but at some point, we don't have that as our program grow together.
And what I don't want to do is I don't want to take or assume anything and take it and say, hey, we're going to do this. Come to all of you, and you say, hey, that's not how we would have recommended it. We don't approve, and then it causes a whole other issue with that. So I want to make sure I'm cautious with all of you. I mean, I think we've built a relationship over time by trusting each other and being careful that everything is spelled out. But I've got to figure out what would be your recourse, or it's not recourse, sorry, your recommendations on that, so that Dan and I, because you figure it takes, if we do a job, we post it for 2 weeks, we do interviews and stuff over the next 2 weeks, we then offer a job, it takes 2 weeks to get somebody, because they're probably gonna give 2 weeks notice. They start a week after that if we're lucky. You're talking 2 months at that point. I mean, you're like 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you factor in maybe if you don't have a good candidate pool, which has happened before, you may have 4 weeks of, because you repost it or you do something else. We've had people that have said, yes, I'll start, and they quit on day 3, and then you gotta redo it again. I just wanna make sure I'm cautious where I don't also come in here and say, where I thought we were at, we're now 2 weeks behind, which causes 1,000 inspections behind, which causes this behind. I don't wanna do that either, because we just came from a place of, hey, public, we're thousands of inspections behind, it's not okay. So I don't wanna end up in that boat either.
I personally just feel a bit uncomfortable about talking about hiring someone new when we don't know if the levy's gonna pass or not.
And I did actually talk with Mr. Lark about that and Mr. Graham. My thought was we don't do anything until January 1st.
Okay.
A, because if the levy does not pass, it's gonna be, we'd have to have a very tough discussion on what,
Yeah.
on just everything. I mean, for that matter, it's not just one thing; it's everything. I don't think it'll come to that, hopefully, but also this is a perfect storm with the
I was gonna say,
sexennial
this
assessment.
is a tough time for levies.
Yeah, it's a
I mean,
very
it's gonna be tough for the levies on this
Yeah.
ballot.
But I think we all agree that we need to table this discussion to the next meeting.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just want to put in thought is if you
I-
look at it in your heads, like recommendation wise, what would you prefer, how I came to you, or how would you want it approved, or
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're
Mentality.
adding somebody to our expenses, we'd like, I mean, at least I would like to, I don't know how you guys feel, would like to know ahead of time.
yeah, agreed.
If there's a new hire.
Mhm.
Do we have a sense though of the number of new, well, not new, but newer missed inspections, whatever that number is, what the demand's gonna be, and how much
Yeah.
one employee,
Yeah, we
Can
can do that.
cover.
We
documented
got-
it in Lake County when we did it, we
Yeah.
had a guy, so.
Dan and I've gone over that. We have like
Same
a,
thing.
you expect so many inspections per employee.
Right.
They're going to do
This
X.
cycle on 1
They
through
were out
5.
2 weeks on vacation, 1 week on sick time. It comes out to Y. We have all those, and we have obviously data from the staff here where how many they're getting to because every county is different. If you're in, Lake as an example, it's the smallest county, so your travel isn't that far. If you're in Ashtabula or Geauga, it's a much larger county. The travel may mean that you do 5 less inspections per day, which equals out to 25 less a week times 4 weeks times 52 weeks, so sorry, times 52. So all those things would come into play.
so do we have a sense of how many inspections need to be done and how many positions that's gonna require?
Yeah, we know we generally know how many inspections due to how many septic systems. The question is how fast the enrollment is. So we're looking at Chester and Chardon and Chester being the first two because they're closest to the health department. So if we run into an issue, we can go back to the home base and talk with Dan or whoever, and then we roll from there. But again, it's still, everything kind of hinges on how that goes. But as I mentioned, when Dan and I talked, everything's on hold until the levies pass because that's a whole nother discussion point. And then we go from there. But I do want to put in your thought process of if we present this, of like, here's what you need for X inspections, how would you want me to come to you? So if we say, hey, a clerk this week and a sanitarian the next, what is your preference? Do you want it written down? Do you want some kind of note behind it? Do you want total cost? Do you want job descriptions? All those things would be based on what your preferences are.
Alright, so no discussion, it's like it's spread out, Dan said 6 to 7 year implementation. If you jump on a bunch now, then you set that tone for the 1 year cycle, 3 year cycle, 5 year cycle, whatever it is. And forever, your income will go way up and way down, and then you can't, if you don't want to float that, you're gonna lay off staff, hire staff, lay off staff. So the hardest thing is taking out of those systems, but, putting 25% of the
Right.
1 year systems on and then X number of the others. So we have, I don't know the algorithm, but a whole
Yeah.
way kind of distribute that, put it together, work, and we fine tuned it since when we started in Lake County.
Yeah, we tried
But
to,
it really has to stabilize revenue as part of that.
yeah, we take all the system numbers that we have and put them into, a big chart. So that way we can even out the workloads, even out the revenues,
Right.
even out expenses,
Yeah,
all
so
that
it's
kind of stuff. So
X number of inspections per year, revenue per year, but it may be shuffling some 2 years later for some communities and some come up faster geographically.
So we're gonna need something of that ilk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can provide that.
Yeah, and we, actually, I believe we actually have it created already sitting in
Yeah.
the back over there, so,
Okay.
Yeah, it's already in place.
yeah.
That's how we got to the point that we said we knew we'd have to add at least one person, usually a clerk and a sanitarian. If you've done some of those preliminary calculations, it's just how fast we going. But like Dan and Ron said, we also can't enroll half the county in year one, because then
Yeah.
year 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe like almost next to nothing.
Right.
Then it skyrockets and it
Right.
just plummets.
Yeah.
So workload would be
You gotta
offset.
figure out the reserves, that causes confusion with the public and the auditors and how you balance out that income, so.
And there's been a couple counties through Ohio where they've tried to enroll everybody in 1 year and it's like bombed out.
Yeah,
It's
that doesn't-
spectacularly. So, it's, looking at some of the other lessons from other counties.
Yeah.
My sense is that your thought process is likely the direction that we need to go.
I hope so.
And we're gonna need to see more detail on that for us to be able to make the appropriate decisions, recognizing that we are a lean county.
Yes.
So,
It actually leads into something that I was gonna bring up as like a work group. We need to put together 2 people to look over public health accreditation, continuity of operation plans, a preparedness plan, the workforce plan, community health improvement plan, quality improvement plan, performance management, all those plans. I don't want to raise your hands, but maybe you guys may, as a board, collectively have not seen those plans, you know, and so it's gonna take a long time to get a couple of people through all those and the potential requirements, how they thread together with the hospitals, with our compliance with the state, the funding's tied to it or not tied to it, the costs with it. It's probably, 40 hours of work over, from now to the end of the year, trying to get through all that stuff. You guys really understand the implications of it. And that's, I think, my duty is to be transparent with that. Because we're on both sides of this thing. So, looking for two volunteers at some point.
Yes, Dr. Henderson.
I'll volunteer.
He's volunteering. You have one.
I will cautiously volunteer, recognizing that I don't have quite as much free time, perhaps.
We're trying to do it very efficiently.
Others,
but,
yes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
The other thing I want to mention, just in case any staff are watching this, it's so the funding would also, there's a possibility for a tax assessment, which is what Geauga used to have years and years and years ago, where it comes from the townships, villages, and then one city. So, because we have to provide the services required by the law, we can't just not provide things. So, I don't want any staff who are watching or listening to be like, oh, he just said if the levy fails, like it's all crap in a handbasket.
Right.
It's not. We'd have to go to other, and we still have two more bites of the apple in terms of what Mr.
Right.
Walter said with the levy. But obviously the hope is it passes the first time so that we can continue planning as we do now for the future.
Planning to continue to be more extensive planning as we.
And we were
Those
also
chances.
under the understanding that we had sufficient revenue to do the services that were required. If we find out that we need additional revenue, just the replacement levy alone may not be sufficient.
And to also be clear, that was also the perception before the House Bill 110 came out as $1 million.
Right.
So that was also that was pre that. At that
And
point,
before we knew about the rent, the possibility of rent.
correct. So there are factors that came in after that. That is why I bring up the contract. I'm very cautious on. That's why we're under budget. We try to be under budget.
Right.
That's why I'm very cautious is we don't have like 2 feet on our left and 2 feet on our right where we can wiggle between the lanes.
Right.
We've got a lane about the size of our car.
The only thing I wanted to point out, Adam, about assessing the townships, I think when we looked into this, we need to draw down our reserves to 0 before we can assess the townships. Isn't that what we heard from the auditor's office?
So my understanding is we could go to them and say we need funding in the future, but there was, I think it's from Mr. Walder, if I remember correctly, this is a while back, that generally they'd want to see a lower balance. Now with House Bill 110 coming out,
Okay.
and
They would see a lower.
I mean it's gonna
Restricted
be
funds.
House Bill
Yeah.
110 alone is $979,000.
Yeah, it was nearly $1 million.
Yeah, it's
Plus
a
legal
large
fees.
chunk of our
Yeah.
retainer, additional dollars.
Yeah, unencumbered cash.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's not an official requirement that we draw down. For some reason, I misunderstood. I thought that was.
Not
an
that I'm
official-
aware of, Ron. I'm not aware you have to draw it
No,
down.
I mean, it'd be more an opinion or, a requirement, but you're gonna be able to project the revenue. So the contract has a lot about cost, but it doesn't show the revenue side, and those can shift, and they're just, gray, intangible, so we have to
Okay.
really look at that. But yeah, at some point, you'd have to say, here's payroll, we're projecting that, here's revenue, projecting that, and we're going solving that X, Y, Z, whatever date, and then we know that's the problem.
It's just things I want to make sure I don't want to be the guy who comes to you at the 11th hour and says, by the way, we should have already talked. I mean, I want to make sure we're 2 months ahead, and hopefully never becomes that. The conversation never needs to happen. But
Pre-plan.
yeah, I would not be doing a good service to you if I just ignored it until the point that blew up and then said, by the way, board, you need to figure this out in the next 25 days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not appropriate. So
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's plenty for me.
Okay, that was a
I
lot.
worked my to death.
That's a lot to take. You want to talk about the financials now or before?
Yeah, we can. No changes to what are in there. You guys have the bills in front of you. The lake bill, if we're okay with that, that would be paid out obviously, which is it's about $650,000. That does include $30,000. That's for 6 months. That includes $30,000 from Dan and I pre this contract that we waited on billing
Okay.
because the appropriations and
Got
the
it.
change in staff. We held off to make sure everything was in place before we rushed it.
So it is not going to be standard practice that we get a 6-month bill.
No, so part of it was getting the appropriations in place, and honestly, the other part was sheer workload. And I don't mean to say that to try to sound like
Sympathetic,
we're-
yeah.
sympathetic. It's just the mere fact that between Parkman Wells, between the
Right.
House Bill 110, and other things, we don't have any extra time.
Right.
We've been struggling to get, so we actually use an outside person to do the billing, gave them the information, and had them create it. And that way, and then we obviously looked over it, but it made sense. And again, we're under budget, which was my biggest concern. A 6-month bill worked out. But yeah, in the future, my hope is we're back to every month they build.
Okay.
Because if nothing else,
Yeah, I think that would be better.
for Lake County services, it should be that way as well. It shouldn't be,
Yeah,
you know.
it's
that
better
far.
for everybody's budgeting
Yeah.
purposes. Questions about the financial, so the Cuyahoga Board of Health expense, what is that for?
That one,
I think that's the Healthy Northeast Ohio database, is that, if I'm not mistaken?
that was $2,000. I think that is Healthy O. Yeah, I think that's the Healthy Ohio we just talked about, Ron.
Yeah, so Center for Health Affairs created a data portal for the Northeast region, and they had a grant to do it. It only lasted 2 years, so trying to perpetuate it, we jumped on last because we were super excited about secondary data that's publicly available. However, they house it in a more conducive way to access it. And so we jumped into help get that project afloat. Now they're kind of looking at money. CCBH has hired an outside consultant from PA to ask around. My recommendation was we probably would not continue to fund that for Lake County. It's probably like 6,000 or 7,000. Then we have another project going on with UH Hospital, and we think it'll be much more real live data, more effective. You know, maybe a little bit more pricier some facts, but much more actionable and current. So I did that interview on behalf of Lake Geauga, and said we don't think that'll be something we support. So it should be. I think that's the last year of it right now.
Got it. What about these charges for Cleric Farms? It's on page 9. There's like 2 charges for over $14K each.
That's, that we paid out.
Yeah.
They want some WPC.
I was-
Those are some of the
Yeah.
grant jobs
Oh,
that
okay.
they won.
Got
so
it, got it.
We'd be paying him for the installation of septic systems.
Okay, so those were covered by grants.
Yes. I was like, the only thing large enough that could be WPCLF for 14,000.
How do you determine like who the contractor is in those situations?
It's a best
It's a bid,
and, best and
okay.
lowest bid.
You have about 150,000 this year.
Just,
No, we only had,
just asking.
Are we on 22?
I think that was the 50.
Did
that
we
was-
just wrap up the 21
I think
million?
that was February of
So
21.
22, I think we have 55,000.
Yeah, okay.
And then we've requested being bumped up to back up to the 150
Oh,
for the next year.
Okay, great. Yeah, with OMM coming on, I think
Yeah.
that
That
will
was the one that we didn't use the money in previous years, since they reduced our allocation.
Okay.
We're now showing that we're gonna use
Yeah.
it, and so we bumped it back
Okay,
up to
great.
what it is.
Okay, so I thought we were.
And what's the requirement to access those funds?
It's based on income.
Yeah, is
So
it
it's-
like 300%?
300% of the poverty.
Okay, all right, good. Well,
And then-
that will be good to have that available for folks.
Yeah, we've been, Chris, who's been really doing a lot of the work on that, and really been getting it out good, so.
It could have been utilized for every year. It just had not been, so that's one of the things we, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the needs there.
Yeah, I would think so.
The other thing to bring up, that I was gonna bring up in the bill section is that we have, so Geauga in the past has not had a credit card because we fall under the EIN number of the county. And so, and we also don't reach the threshold for purchasing cards from the local banks, because we've tried this for 6 years, 5 years at least that I've been here. We've been unsuccessfully getting a credit card. Through Lake, we do have a credit card. I would like to open one, or actually I did open one that is GPH-Adam Lidke. So to do O&M, how we do it to get the mailers out, we have to buy stamps from stamps.com is the most efficient way to do it. We can't do that via check. They run it down your balance and you pay it out via credit card. We have a credit card policy in Lake. I'll put the same policy in place here at Geauga. It meets the auditor of states criteria. We gotta sign off and approve everything. My thought is we'll bring the monthly credit card statement to all of you so that you can see what you're paying. These are all within that threshold of what you already have given me the decision-making ability with. None of the stuff is rising to astronomical amounts. You know, the first, I forget how many months it was going to cover off my head, but it's $5,000 total for stamps.com. It's not like it's $35,000 or $40,000. And then usually the card, what it does allow us to do is get discounts on certain things if you pay in full by a certain date. So we also use it for that. And there are some entities we deal with now that will not accept checks anymore. They only accept credit cards to make sure it's paid before the event.
Yeah.
One of which actually is your FEP coordinator is going to a conference coming up on more towards the West Coast. That has to be paid via credit card. They will not accept a check on site. And I don't feel comfortable making someone who works for us have to put a $500 or $600 charge on their card until the grant reimburses us to reimburse them. We can take that on ourselves and pay that out, given that the grant's reimbursing it. So I'll try to get that policy and procedure and send it out to everyone via email, so you just have an idea of what it looks like. But it's approved by the auditor of state, same process Lake used. We used it we took it from somebody else anyways. But we'll do that, and then the reason that the card has GPH in front of it, not only is to delineate that it's GPH's card, it's on its own separate, it's in the bill as a separate card. So there is no like, did you use it for that or this?
Points or rewards
Yeah.
that go back to the agency.
Okay,
And
and
I'm
so
the
then
one-
you'll just bill us monthly with that,
Correct.
along with those.
Yeah, and I'm the only one that has access to that card, so I just keep it with me, and then if we need it, we use that, just so nobody uses it accidentally or uses it for something they shouldn't do it for.
No, it makes sense, and then you don't have to like apply for reimbursement for everything.
And I will
As most of you know, that's what I do right now.
At
Yeah,
least for the O&M program, it
That's a lot of
actually
work.
helps us save money based on the way we send out certified letters.
okay.
So going through that process, it lets us save time and cost of employees and postage also. So it does help us be more efficient in the program.
Yeah,
We
so our
actually-
prosecutor looked at the policy, you decided, well, we'd all dial in tight and then pass it with you guys.
Well, welcome to 1980
Yeah.
with your credit card.
Get those Nike pumps on there.
It's
it's
just
so-
really cutting edge
It's so
technology.
sad. I did ask our staff though. The credit card readers. I've looked at. We have to replace them. We'll have the chipped ones now. That you can like no contact. I got so annoyed when I had to pay for something. It was actually in Lake County. We use the same readers, and I was like, I can't do tap and touch. Like no, I'm like this is bull crap. Like 1995 all over again. So first world problems though.
Okay.
Anyways.
All right, any more questions on the financials? Moving on to the commissioner's report.
Yeah, nothing really new, no new outbreaks, that's been good. I went through the plan, the main thing was getting a ad hoc work group together to go over some of these major core plans that are anywhere from 10 pages to 150 pages. Kind of synopsis of that, let you guys know the impact of that. So thank you for the physicians jumping on here. The other thing, you have one full-time health educator, right now she does social media, website, Safe Communities, Naloxone. She'll be working with us to help implement the Community Health Improvement Plan, which is really stalled. So most of these plans we have to show some sequential progress for accreditation, and I just need to make sure the board understands the requirements and what movement we can make. Again, once the levy is either passed or not passed, I'll finalize the accreditation report. The biggest thing is to do that, we have to have a full-time accreditation coordinator, or you're done out of the gate.
Like
So it's a
we
cost.
need our own.
I think we can share one. I mean,
Okay.
I'm pushing with the state, I'll push, we're in an unprecedented kind of
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it'll give us a pass at some level, for a year or so, but somewhere I probably could get a coordinator that would do both. And then that's literally half the cost, or 60-40 the cost, whatever we can do. Certainly tons of efficiencies on things we adopted to push down. So just wanted to, talk about those kind of things. This is one example. It's just the guidance from the state on the continuity of operation plan. It touches on
The top document, there's only one of, because 42
Yeah,
pages,
just
only
one.
got 5 of them. The other one there's one for everybody.
Yeah, the continuity of operations has some, security kind of measures in it, how to handle the staff and how you handle emergencies. So just plenty of the guidance you can take out. The other plan we restrict, a little bit just because it's security and sensitive information. So that's one, but that plan, the group will look at that, and those kind of plans need to come back to the Board of Health for approval. I'm not sure that has happened over time, and want you guys to be able to have some scope and impact of what you're committing to with that. And my job is to ensure compliance and try to bring in additional funding or creative strategies with the state to save funding based on, what's a very unique relationship now. So just want to kind of give you an example of that to look over. And then I'll get all that out by email, several documents, and then we'll kind of knock this out with the work group.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anyone on the board currently who was around when Tom Quaid was going through the accreditation process?
I think both Lynn and Ashley.
I think Lynn was, Ashley was right after Lynn, I think they were
Yeah.
in that order, so Lynn maybe. Ashley, she might have been.
I think she was at the tail end of it
Yeah.
because
She was 21, wasn't she? She was.
yes, because I was 22.
Yeah. So I think we would have had everything submitted in 21 by the time she was there.
Okay.
Off the top of my head.
I just remember she was on the board when it was announced that you
Correct.
got the accreditation. So
Correct.
yeah, it might have just been Lynn.
I don't think I have time this Friday.
The other thing is I'm working on a draft newsletter we spoke about. Once I get the content, I'll probably give it to the Ms. President and take a look and see if it's something you think is good to go with or whatever.
Okay, that's for the community?
Yeah, just to
Okay.
see if it's what you guys feel and want with it.
And then what's the plan for distribution of it?
First
Facebook?
digital, community, yeah, something, you get it through Facebook, website, our community partners.
Okay,
Just, we'll review the topics I have in there and see if it's appropriate for what you guys want to see.
all right, any questions on the Health Commissioner's report? All right, moving on to committee meetings. No committees, no reports. Done. Check mark. Old business, Geauga Public Health rent discussion. Adam, any update on that?
There's no specific update on that. We're still, at least from my understanding, where the board would sit at right now is the space that was previously authorized by myself to some degree that ADP could use, which was the lunchroom,
Yeah.
and the storage closet next to it is still, that would be okay for ADP to utilize that, given that we don't see a desperate need for it in the overall square footage. Because the storage closet, we can move things downstairs. The lunchroom itself, no one really uses it. They use the lunchroom across the hallway here, or they go out. And then there was a request to have the food trucks here 5 days a week if staff wanted to eat at one of those throughout the building. And then other than that, right now, we're holding off as we do some rent calculations, and also we did a records request. It was not a records request, it was treated as a records request.
Yeah.
We requested some documents from the county in terms of other contracts, how they negotiated, where they came their numbers with, a lot of those things. But no gigantic updates since then, other than we're still looking at those things and trying to figure it out. And honestly, the levy is I don't want to keep coming back to that, but when I, as a finance, my background, that's my main concern is, when you lose a giant revenue source potentially, or keep a revenue source, it makes drastic decisions on what you do.
Right.
So,
And where are we as far as the records requested?
there's a
Commissioner's
couple
office.
items I believe that are outstanding off the top of my head. And to be fair, when I sent those out, I think it was Friday. I have not been at my laptop much since Friday, given just some of the things that have been going on in here that we've been dealing with. So I will double check, but I've been doing minimal email.
But we're still waiting for some of the data that we requested, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Any questions about that, guys? All right, moving on to new business resolutions, financial reports. I don't have to read this, do I?
No, it's just be appropriations as presented.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve resolution 23-10-07-01-01 to approve the financial reports as presented?
I so move.
And a second?
Okay, so that was Dr.
Rude.
Rude. I'm sorry, I was trying to figure out where I'm supposed to write your name on this one. And Dr. Hendrickson seconded. And we do that as a roll call, right, Adam?
Yeah, and that's actually, sorry, that's the appropriations one.
Oh. Did I do the wrong one?
Yeah, I was actually trying to figure out where you were at. I was like, you
Oh.
skipped one. So that
Alright.
these two are to, wait, hold on, sorry. Nope, sorry, you're right.
No,
That's
that
that
was
one,
right.
sorry.
You made me think I was going crazy. Sorry.
No, just me.
Okay, roll call vote.
Yeah, Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Dr. Rude,
Yes.
Ms. Brady.
Yes. Okay, so 3 yeses, 0 noes, and I'll send this down for a signature. Okay. All right, permission to approve appropriations for increase, decrease. Adam, do you want to go through what this means?
Yeah, so these are minimal. It's mostly for operation and maintenance, things, the mailing costs covered. It's to cover a couple expenses that go along with that or through a grant. So it's, as you see, it's minimal cost increases in general.
Okay.
But just
So
placeholders.
just shuffling money around.
Correct.
Okay, so just to give you guys, since you don't have this in front of you, but the total increase, decrease to appropriations is $55,000. So is there a motion to approve the appropriations for increase, decrease as presented?
I so move.
So moved.
Okay, Dr. Henderson moves and seconded by Dr. Rude.
Yes.
Do we need a roll call for this?
We can. Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Dr. Rude,
Yes.
Ms. Brady.
Yes.
The next one is really in the same vein as what you're doing there, because it's in there. This one is just to let you guys know what the mailing cost for O&M would be, because I want to make sure that with the O&M program taking off, you guys understand what the costs are, just for the mere fact that it's going to be the largest program in the health department. So I think it's important you know the revenue and the expense when we're talking about this program.
Okay. So is there a motion to allocate $5,000 for mailing cost of the O&M program?
So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Yes. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that passes.
The next one before we read it, Dan and I, actually I'll leave it to Dan. I'm going to skip to the part we need to talk about.
Oh, the reading of
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
fees?
so we actually had as part of fee increases, we have to have public hearings. So last week, we had a public hearing where we sent out notice to every single licensee through the food program
Okay.
and the campground program, or the food program for this, and let them know that there was going to be a public hearing. We had 6 people show up.
All right.
Which is actually a lot.
It
Yeah.
sounds like a lot,
Yeah,
honestly. It
typically,
sounded
I mean,
like a lot
this
to
is
me.
actually the first time I think we've had anybody almost show up for a public hearing. So, at that whole point is we present what we're going to do to the affected industry and let them comment on the fees.
Those two are
Oh.
So
Okay.
in general, just the people who had restaurants, they thought it was a large increase, and it is percent-wise.
Yep.
But it is also getting us back to actually covering costs in the program. When COVID happened, it artificially lowered. I think we talked about this a little bit the last
Yeah.
meeting too. Lowered the fees, and now we're kind of catching back up to where
Yeah.
where we're covering the cost. So it's more like a user fee versus a taxpayer-supported thing.
Right, yeah, I mean, the taxpayers would be subsidizing
Would be
if it's
subsidizing,
lower,
correct.
yeah.
And technically, the way that the whole thing works out, every year we're still losing a little bit of money
Small
every year
portion,
yeah, 5%
because we
or
use this year's financial data,
Oh,
even though
right.
people will get a raise or health insurance increases or
Yeah.
gas increases.
I
So
gotcha.
we do lose a little bit of money on the program, even if we use the maximum fees.
Yeah, apparently.
So that's just a state calculation, that
It
kind of
is.
makes
It's
you
state mandated
lose money.
calculation.
So it's a state mandate program, and they don't even let you recover all your,
Yeah,
Yes,
you got to
correct.
accrue the
Okay.
cost versus.
just make sure I understand how this works.
For those
And
that,
somehow we run out of money in health departments, but
Yeah.
For those
It's a
that-
mystery.
for those that weren't here or if they're new to this, so Dan and I fill out a spreadsheet every year. Dan's actually been doing it. Thank God he's doing it now. It's this giant spreadsheet. You fill it out, you put data in. It doesn't even tell you how the data is used, like how it's calculated in the background. I'm sure you could back calculate it. And it spits out numbers. And those numbers are recommendations from the sheet that's what your fee should be. And it should not exceed that. That's what covers your cost. So these are based on those cost covering. The one thing that Dan does that I think it's very beneficial is the administration is taken as a percentage. So the administration cost, not technically Dan, myself, Ron, because there may be a salary that's higher because you may have different job duties or whatever. Instead of using the one where we actually use our actual salary rates, we use the percentage based. And therefore, the system itself says you should not exceed X dollars. This year was 23.8% or 0%. You only get 23.0% of what you're charging as an administration charge. And that includes clerks as well. So it's clerks, Dan, myself, Ron, anyone who's not a sanitarian in the field doing the inspection. So these costs, as Dan mentioned, are higher than normal. Higher than last year, not normal, higher than last year. But they've been reduced for almost 3 years now, and the state subsidized hundreds of thousands of dollars for most counties to keep them low. So now we're back to no subsidization, and post-COVID, they're naturally going to go up.
Yeah, we did have the inspections, they weren't really getting the service they were paid for, so it's kind of supplemented by the state.
But all Dan talk about, the ones that are highlighted up here were specific
Yeah, so,
to the conversation.
So besides just the couple people who were there said, they were unhappy with the size of the jump. The other issue that was brought up was the bottom 2 rows of that cost chart are temporary license and non-commercial temporary food license, which are a lot of times people who don't normally run food, they just want to sell it for a week or a weekend or something at some type of event. And our typically those do cost several hours per event. So what was our current rate? Was it $70 or $60?
60.
So $60. So, there's anytime there's an event, because then also we go out and do an inspection. Usually we help them with paperwork, we help them with the planning, make sure they know what they're supposed to do, then we go out and do an inspection. So, we put in 2 to 4 hours in every single one of these, and we are only charging $60, so as you can imagine. So we proposed an increase to 150 and 175. By statute, the non-commercial is supposed to be half of the commercial rate.
Okay.
So that's why all the fees are like that. So one of the comments we had was just that they thought it would restrict some of the participation of the community at different events. And I can't see that because, a lot of times it might be a church doing stuff or Boy Scouts or stuff like that. So
Or they won't even bother applying for the license.
Well,
that's the other thing too.
I mean-
yes. Yeah, exactly.
If-
Because they
if
might
you're-
get $75. I don't
Right.
want to spend. The Girl
Yeah.
Scouts got to sell a lot of cookies or hot
$2
dogs.
for harmony.
Exactly,
So
to break even.
that was one thing Adam and I were discussing today, and we had come up with some revised numbers a little bit that we might think about recommending to you. We don't do so many where it's we're not doing hundreds of these a year.
Right.
We might do
Right.
30 of them, maybe 40 of them total throughout the whole year.
Comes down to like common sense, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So part of it-
sympathetic to this.
Yeah, so part of it is, looking back at the numbers, we said, we probably should increase it a little bit to help cover some costs, but maybe in the interest of supporting community stuff, that we take a little bit of a loss on it. So we had some proposed, I think $100 and $50.
Yeah, I am sympathetic because, when we go to the square or something like that, Chardon Square, Middlefield, when you go to those things, it's nice to see, Element 41 or whoever, they come out and they set up a booth or whatever they're doing, they're cooking. It's nice to have those options. If we, in essence, at least in their opinion, price them out,
Yeah.
it not only limits the experience of your community, but it also reduces the draw. And there's the other offset where maybe they just say, hey, I'm gonna roll the dice and go out there
Yeah, I don't-
and see if they catch me.
Yeah.
And now, if we're out there, we would, but nonetheless, there's no reason to start an argument within the community over something like this. If it draws things back from the community, they could otherwise get. So Dan and I talked, and if we did $100 and $50, it would at least help offset some of the cost. And given the low dollar of it, it wouldn't be a catastrophic thing. The other one is mobile, which is above that, the 225. As an example, that one would have to be like, I think $600, something like that, if it covered all costs.
Is that like a food truck? Is that what?
Yes,
Okay.
but at the same time, I can't charge $600. Go from $90 to $600. We need to cover costs, but
Yeah.
that's not a good option.
So that's for the whole year, whatever
Yes,
that,
yeah.
the 220, okay.
And some of this is when Dan, we go out to the fair, there may be a mobile that's licensed in a different county, we still inspect them because they may not be preparing for food credit, which happened at the fair. We had some that were dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
There's some shady stuff.
yeah, there was,
You gotta find one almost every time.
Yeah.
we had one or two that were, it was like, you gotta fix this
You
like
can talk
now
about
before
what
you
those
kill
were
somebody.
later, yeah.
So,
Ice cream at 7 degrees is great. Not what you want.
So those are things that if the board be amicable to it, the 225 is not going to cover costs, but it will do something towards it. The 150 going to 100 and the 75 going to 50 for the temporary and the non-commercial temporary is I think a balance between covering costs and not affecting the population and our fellow residents to the point that they don't get the experience they normally get at a festival.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would be as presented.
And just for my edification, the vending that's right above that.
We can only increase that by the CPI each year. So it will be forever zero.
Part of the reason that's terribly low
Yeah, that's
is
what I was
in
gonna
the prior years, we'd actually been charging it the wrong way. And so we came in and reviewed the fees for our first time last year, and we realized that they were charging fees the wrong way.
And when you say we have been doing it, you don't mean you have been doing it wrong.
Just the Geauga Board of
Okay.
Health was actually
All right,
charging.
that's what I
We
figured.
did that.
Yeah.
It was always.
So it was like you can charge, if I remember, let me get this right. We were charging per machine, and that is not what was allowed. So you can charge per location. So when you have like that bank of vending machines, you can charge per location, and it was being charged per machine, which is actually is not allowed. It has to be per location. So, unfortunately, it's in the Ohio Revised Code that we can only increase it per the Consumer Price Index.
Yeah.
So if you're going from $5 and they're letting you do a 3% increase, you're never gonna.
Well,
I think it was a
that's
6% this year,
Yeah.
but still 6%
So we will never
of
catch
$5.
up.
So yeah.
Ever.
So we did call and ask if there's a way, like, hey, we recognize that this would be charged wrong, are we able to?
A one time.
And they were like,
Change it.
absolutely not.
They said it's like very clearly written in the ORC, no.
I can't hide.
They're like, they basically called you an idiot, yeah.
That's why we were able to go over some of those plans.
Not necessarily us.
No, well, like I said, when you say we did it wrong, you don't mean that, do
Dan and I
you?
are just the fixers.
Yeah, okay,
And
you guys are
Ron.
fixing a lot of stuff, that's
Do
good.
what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need, is there a resolution?
There's
there?
not a resolution, you're doing a fee reading, so you're doing a reading.
Takes 3
So
readings.
So this is one of 3 readings that we'll have to.
Okay, so you don't need me to.
So you'll probably actually need to read a little bit of the resolution because we'll need to kind of add in as the adjustments because we're changing those fees. You guys can make a decision on what you want to do with those fees but whatever kind of however you read it, we'll probably want to.
Accept as is presented there.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do as included in the minutes, because this was posted online, we could do
Yeah.
that, but we do need to specifically say that temporary food and non-commercial temporary would be as discussed.
Right.
Okay,
If you're fine with that.
okay, so is there, so I need a motion to accept the resolution to increase certain fees, food service program,
And start the first reading.
and start the first reading with the exception of temporary food and non-commercial temporary food. And do you need me to say what numbers?
Yeah, so we would,
Yeah,
Okay,
modify
wherein temporary food will be modified to $100 and non-commercial temporary food will be modified to $50. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, do you need
we can do a roll call.
roll call?
Dr. Root, or sorry, Dr. Henderson,
Yay.
Dr. Root,
Yes.
Ms. Brady.
Yes. Okay, so that motion carries.
And you will have deja vu, we'll do this 2 more times, so November
great.
and December, and they're effective in.
Well, maybe I'll remember how to do it next time.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask about vending each time.
You know, and I will remind you about CPI.
Yeah.
It's something you only do once a year, and even then, there's times that we haven't done this for years on end because it may have been fine where it was. So there's times
Yeah.
we might not do this for 2 years, whereas now I think we've reduced almost 2 or 3 years in a row. So, anyways,
All right, anything else before we move on to public comment?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, you want to give the rules, Adam?
Yes.
Rules of the road?
Everyone would have the eligibility to speak for 2 minutes, if you so wish. I just ask that you keep it respectful. Not that you have to, but I wish you do, because it is videotaped, and we're trying to represent Geauga well here. So, especially for the new voters.
And this is a
PG.
feisty group, so,
She is. I mean, look, at her. She's ready to go.
yeah.
Even though they all said no on my list of would they talk, would the lovely couple or the legal voters wish to speak? No.
All right.
Would our new videographer like to speak? No. Okay. So
Okay.
apparently no. No one's
All
talking to
right,
us.
all right. Do we need an executive?
We do not. It was on
Oh,
there as a
great.
precaution, but to my knowledge, we do not.
That's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping. All right.
We didn't talk to you before.
Then let's adjourn this meeting at 6:18 p.m.
All right.
I would say if you were interested in going, I know it's kind of technical, but the very first session might be
The
the one to
first
go
one?
to.
Okay.
It's just how you kind of determine what you're gonna do with how to design septic systems.
I'm waiting for that day, Ed, where you've got a whole speech prepared. And you're ready to like.
Circle that.
Maybe 4 to 5 days.
Yeah, I'm just waiting.
Don't forget your autograph photo.
Keep them in line.
Thank you, Bill.
I am unable.
Damn, look, you have me too.
I missed it last year, so I don't wanna do it this year.
Let me know what dates, both Dr. Marks, you guys think might be available to get together and we can do whatever, go over some of the documents. Virtual, in person. we
So
can
my
tonight.
best in the business day
Yeah.
time is Wednesdays between 8 and noon.
How about you?
It was really.
Now,
I
it's,
can do that, especially.
right, I can't give you all 4 of those hours, but I can give you